What's up, everybody? So today I am doing my 1000 subscriber special Q&A video. I made a community post a few days ago, or almost a week ago now, I think, asking you guys for questions that you wanted to ask me. And I received quite a few questions. I think like 16 or 17 of them. I have my notes here. 16 questions it looks like, which is a little bit more than I thought I would. I wasn't really expecting a big response. So yeah, we have quite a few questions to go over, which is cool. And this is my first time ever doing one of these videos. And I did take notes and kind of look through these, obviously, but I didn't really think about clear answers for all of these, so I am going into this a little bit blind. And these are in no particular order. I just kind of wrote them down as I saw the comments. So, yeah. One thing I do want to say before I get into the Q&A, though, is I wanted to just kind of thank you guys, I guess, for watching the channel and all the support. I wanted to give a shout out to a few of my friends, fellow booktubers, a few that didn't ask me questions, but that I wanted to mention. One of them, and these are in, again, no order. One of them that comes to mind is Shady Side Library. Zach, over at Shady Side Library, he's a good friend of mine, fellow booktuber. He reads and reviews a lot of Goosebumps book, Fear Street, like kids and YA horror, kind of a lot of the stuff that I talk about on my channel. But he also reads a large variety of stuff, a lot of Stephen King, some adult horror books. And yeah, he's just like a super nice guy, and his channel deserves a lot more subscribers than what he has. And yeah, I think you guys should go check out his channel. And I'll be posting links to all of these channels I'll be talking about down in the description below. Another one I want to mention is Midnight Chronicler. He's a newer booktuber as well. And he also talks about R.L. Stine books and is a big Goosebumps fan. But he talks about a lot of other books as well. He's a big fan of fantasy novels, Brandon Sanderson, authors like that. And he also has a really cool booktube channel. I think you guys should go and check him out. He also made like a little short, like homemade film kind of that was really cool, really creative. And yeah, he's a very talented guy. And I think you guys should go check him out. It's a newer channel. And I think you guys will really like his content. Go check out the Midnight Chronicler. And he did comment saying congratulations. So thank you, MC, for that. And then who else did I want to mention? I know some of these people, some of my friends did leave comments, and I'll be mentioning those channels when I get to them. Another one is Goosebumps Completionist. My good friend Austin over at Goosebumps Completionist is one of the most well-known, I think, Goosebumps type channels. So you probably are already subscribed to him, or at least know about him if you're watching this video. But if not, go subscribe to Goosebumps Completionist. He's kind of like the authoritative, like, Goosebumps YouTuber. He's very, very thorough. He reviews, or plans on reviewing, I believe, every single individual Goosebumps book there is, and like doing a ranking for everything. He knows a lot more about the franchise than I do. And yeah, he's a very smart guy. He does very in-depth reviews. He gives plot overviews without giving too much away. Or does he? He might give the whole entire book away, but but go check out Goosebumps Completionist. Seriously, guys, if you have not yet, yeah, he's one of the more well-known Goosebumps YouTubers out there. But he's a good friend of mine. Go check out his channel. There's a lot of others that I'm sure I'll come across as I go through this Q&A. But I just wanted to do some shout-outs because some of these guys deserve a lot more subscribers than they have. And one of the main reasons I do this booktube thing is basically to talk about books with all of you guys and my friends on here. And if it wasn't for all of these channels I've mentioned and others that I'm going to be getting to, I probably wouldn't be doing this. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to some of you guys out there. Go subscribe to all of these guys. Again, links will be down in the description below. And like I said, I'm kind of going into this Q&A somewhat blind. I thought about some of these answers. So we'll see what I can come up with for some of these questions. And these are in no particular order. The first question is by Frizzard1719. He asks, what is your favorite book of the new series from Horrorland to House of Shivers? So some of you probably already know this about me because I have talked about this book on my channel more than once, and that is The Birthday Party of No Return from the Hall of Horror series. This is absolutely one of my favorite Goosebumps books of all time, probably not just my favorite modern book. There are a lot of modern books that I like, but I think this is my top favorite one. Definitely my favorite book from the modern series. So yeah, Thank you for the question, Frizzard1719. The next question is by Goosebumps Ohio fan. He actually has a few questions for me. The first one is, who could you beat in a fight? Giant praying mantis or Cuddles the hamster? Excellent question, Goosebumps Ohio fan. I think I'm going to have to go with Cuddles the hamster. I don't know if you guys know much about praying mantises, but they are absolutely savage. They kill and destroy and eat other insects and bugs effortlessly out in the wild. If I were to face a giant praying mantis, I wouldn't last more than 5 seconds. So yeah, I would definitely pick to go up against Cuddles the hamster. I don't think hamsters, at least from what I know about them, well, I guess Cuddles the hamster is not an ordinary hamster, so I guess he probably would try to eat me or kill me or something. But still, I would rather take my chances with Cuddles the hamster, I think. Yeah, I wouldn't want to fight a giant praying mantis. That would not be fun. Next question, also by Goosebumps Ohio fan. He asks, what's a sequel you want to a Goosebumps book? I think my answer for that one is a Welcome to Deadhouse sequel. Now, I think what would be really cool is with this new House of Shivers series, I have a feeling that this might be the last Goosebumps series because, I mean, let's face it, R.L. Stine is getting old. Slappy World lasted 17 books or around there. And it's safe to say that this House of Shivers series will probably go on for a little while, at least the next few years. So it's likely we'll see several books from this series. I think it would be cool if R.L. Stine made this the last Goosebumps series and went out with a bang and made the very last Goosebumps book that he ever writes, the finale to this series, be a Welcome to Deadhouse sequel. And it would be really cool if he took his time on this book and made it really good, made it like a throwback to the classic Goosebumps era. I just feel like that would be super poetic to end the Goosebumps franchise with a Welcome to Deadhouse follow-up. I think that would be really cool. So yeah, that's my answer for that one. And then Goosebumps Ohio fans' final question is, what Fear Street books do you recommend for beginners? The first one that comes to mind is Halloween Party. I think Halloween Party is a great introduction into the Fear Street series. It kind of gives you an idea of what to expect from the series as a whole. It has all of the usual teen melodrama, murder mystery, but it's still a really fun book. It's a pretty solid one. Not one of my top favorites or anything, but I feel like it has kind of that typical Fear Street formula, but done very well. And it does get pretty dark and crazy and a little bit violent towards the end of the book. And yeah, Halloween Party, I think, is a pretty good one and would be a good introduction into the series. So that's my answer for that one. Okay. Goosebumps Enthusiast wants to know, if you have to choose between Goosebumps or Fear Street and one to leave the world forever, which one would you pick? Great question, Goosebumps Enthusiast. That's a really difficult choice to make. I think I would probably have to go with Goosebumps just because I prefer that series a little bit more. But that would be really suck to have to just have all of my Fear Street books disappear forever, especially not having read all of them yet, or even close to all of them. I'm not even halfway through all the Fear Street books. I have a long way to go. So that would suck, but I think I've always preferred Goosebumps a little bit more. So I would like to keep Goosebumps and get rid of Fear Street, only as an ultimatum, if I absolutely had to pick one. So yeah, thanks for your question, Goosebumps Enthusiast. Next question is by Mr. Mortman6107. What's the worst and best book you've ever read, period? That's a really tough question, and I'm afraid I can't give you a solid single answer for either of those. Off the top of my head, the worst book that I've ever read might be Arkansas Algae Monsters by Jonathan Rand, which is a kids' horror book, part of the American Chiller series. I read that book last year, I think. Or no, not last year, the year before, 2022. And I almost DNF'd that book. There was 50 pages left, or 40 pages left. I didn't even want to finish reading the book. I kind of skimmed through the last 30 pages or whatever it was, and I never DNF books. I mean, I do, but it's rare, really rare, especially with a kid's book that's only 150 pages long. See, that book was awful. Easily one of the worst books I've ever read. I don't know if I would say it's the worst, period, but it's down there. Another really bad one that's really down there too, which I talked about a while ago in my worst books of the year video that I uploaded, is Final Girls by Riley Sager. That book was awful. That is definitely one of the worst books I've ever read as well. So yeah, those two could contend for like the worst books I've ever read. I'm sure there's some others that I'm not thinking of at the moment that I've read a long time ago that I just don't remember. But yeah, off the top of my head, those two I feel like can serve for the answer for that one. And then the best book I've ever read is also a really difficult question. And to be honest, I'm not even sure that I have like a single solid title that I can tell you is my all-time favorite book. There's a lot of like top favorite books that I have that kind of contend for that title, and I love them all for different reasons. So it's really difficult for me to just pick one book. A few of my all-time favorites, though, are, this might sound cliche, stereotypical answer, but a lot of my all-time favorite books are like the horror classics, Dracula, Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. A lot of the horror classics are all like some of my favorite books ever. So yeah. Again, I'm afraid I don't have a single solid answer for that one. But I hope that answer was somewhat satisfactory. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Mortman6107 for your question. Okay. Ohio Edits AN wants to know, what's the scariest Goosebumps book you've ever read? And what is your number one favorite Goosebumps book of all time? Great question, Ohio Edits. The scariest Goosebumps book that I've ever read is probably Ghost in the Mirror. That book, at least the first half of it, scared me. Maybe not like full on scared me, but creeped me out even as an adult. I vividly remember reading that book when I was a kid and it just scaring the daylights out of me. It's a very dark and eerie book. And even as an adult, when I revisited it, that book is just super creepy. I think the first half of Ghost in the Mirror is like peak R.L. Stine, like some of the darkest and creepiest moments I've ever read in a Goosebumps book ever. It's a shame that the rest of the book went in the direction that it did and was such a letdown. But as it stands, Ghost in the Mirror is probably the scariest Goosebumps book that I've read, at least off the top of my head. There's a few other answers I could give that might like come close, but yeah, we'll stick with Ghost in the Mirror for that one. And then my number one favorite Goosebumps book of all time. I've been saying this for a while now. I think ever since I've revisited the series as an adult and read through the entire original 62 run, I think my all-time favorite is The Ghost Next Door. There's a lot of other great Goosebumps books that, again, it's really difficult to just pick one. There's other answers I could give that are like very close, like second and third places. But I would really adore The Ghost Next Door. It's just such an emotional read. It's one that I connected to and just hit me in a way that no other Goosebumps book did. So yeah, I think The Ghost Next Door, at this point in my life, will probably stay as my all-time favorite. So yeah, thank you for your questions. Next up, Glendy C22 wants to know, what other book series similar to Goosebumps would you like to collect? So the question is, what Goosebumps series would you like to collect? So I guess I'm going to leave out ones that I'm already kind of collecting, like the Goosebumps knockoff series. One series that I would like to collect that I only have one book from, I feel like this counts as a valid answer, is the Are You Afraid of the Dark book series. I only have one book from this series so far. I read it. It was, I believe, called The Tale of the Deadly Diary. It was okay. I didn't mind it. But these books are kind of rare, sort of difficult to find. I haven't come across many at all out in the wild at used bookstores. So it is a series I would like to collect more of and eventually maybe complete the series and read more of them. So yeah, the Are You Afraid of the Dark book series. I would like to get more of those and collect that one. And then Glendy C has another question for me. He asks, what's your favorite Goosebumps TV episode from the original series? So this might be a hot take, but my favorite episode from the Goosebumps TV series is An Old Story. I know there's some people out there that hate this episode. I know there's others like me that really like this episode. I think it has kind of a cult following. And I absolutely love An Old Story because it's an episode that strikes kind of a weird tonal balance. It has just this weird comedy to it, but it's also very creepy and dark with some kind of questionable subject matter. For those of you who've seen the episode, you already know what it's about. It's basically about these old ladies that are witches that are trying to turn these young boys, the protagonists of the story, into old men for romantic reasons. If you stop and think about it, it's kind of messed up, but there's just something I love about this episode. It's so cheesy and campy. It gets me to laugh, but at the same time, it's just kind of like dark and unsettling because of the premise of it. So yeah, An Old Story is my favorite episode from the original Goosebumps TV series. And I think that's all. So yeah, thank you, Glenn DC22, for your questions. Next up, Pulp Fiction Books wants to know, if Jacobus was to do a cover for any book from the Horrorland era onward, which book would you choose? So I'm guessing this question means Tim Jacobus doing his own rendition of a modern Goosebumps book. And this is one I did not think about at all going into this. I completely forgot about this question. So, if I have to pick a modern Goosebumps book for Tim Jacobus to do his own rendition of for the cover art, which one would I choose? That's a good question. I'm honestly not sure. I'm trying to think of something. I'm trying to think of a cover that I don't really care for that much that I think would maybe be improved upon if Jacobus were to do it. I can't think of... Let me look at my modern Goosebumps book behind me real quick here and see if I can think of one. Let's see. I don't know. Judy and the Beast, I guess. I'm not a fan. That's just kind of the first one that I see that's sticking out at me. Judy and the Beast. I'm not really a fan of that cover. It's just, I don't know. I think it would be cooler if Jacobus did something with that one. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Brandon Dorman's cover art for that book. It's not definitely one of my least favorite cover arts for Slappy World. I think Jacobus could maybe do something really cool with that, make a more detailed, scarier looking monster on the cover. Yeah, that would be cool. I'm sure I could come up with a better answer for you if I had more time to think about it, but that question kind of caught me off guard, so sorry for that one. And then he also wants to know, what is your favorite R.L. Stine book? Which I'm assuming, like, just out of every book that he's ever wrote, period. And I'm not really sure. I might just have to give you... I know this is kind of a boring answer that you've already heard, but I might just have to say The Ghost Next Door, book number 10 from the original 62, just because, you know, I can't really think of any others at the moment. I haven't read any standalone R.L. Stine books that I've absolutely loved, that I've given 5 stars to. I've read some Fear Street books that I've really liked that are, like, at the top of my, favorites list for R.L. Stine books, but I don't know. We'll just go with The Ghost Next Door. That's probably my favorite as of right now. And then Pulp Fiction Books also wants to know, what are your favorite TV shows of all time? So I don't really watch much TV anymore. I watched it a lot more as a kid growing up. Throughout my teen years, I watched it a little bit. Nowadays, I just don't watch much TV. But I still do have some TV shows that I really, really like. Some TV shows that I have a lot of nostalgia for. And I figured for this one, I'll kind of give you an answer for like each category of TV show. So for animated, like cartoons, my all-time favorite cartoon is the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You show. Might actually be like my favorite TV show, period, honestly. It's up there. I absolutely love Scooby-Doo. I have talked about it before on my channel. I have a video of like a Scooby-Doo tier ranking I did for all of the movies, if you want to go check that out. I'm a massive Scooby-Doo fan. So yeah, that's probably my favorite all-time cartoon. Coming up like second place behind that is probably Rugrats. I'm a huge Rugrats fan as well. I love that show. So yeah, those are my 2 favorite cartoons. As for sitcoms, I never really watched like a ton of sitcoms throughout my life, but there's a couple that I really, really like. My all-time favorite one is the Dick Van Dyke Show. I'm kind of old school. I've always had an affinity for old black and white TV shows. I like the classics. And the Dick Van Dyke Show is the one sitcom that has gotten me to laugh out loud, probably more than any other. Very clever and witty writing in that show. It's very underrated. It's not like just silliness and slapstick like some of the other like older comedy movies and shows tend to be. It's really a clever show, really well written. And I've always liked Dick Van Dyke as an actor. I think he's a fantastic actor. And yeah, that's probably my favorite sitcom. I also really like the Munsters. I'm a huge Munsters fan. That's probably my second favorite sitcom, right behind the Dick Van Dyke Show. And then Home Improvement is also one that I really like. I'm a huge Home Improvement fan. I've watched through that entire show a couple of times now. So yeah, those are some of my favorite shows ever. And then one other show I want to mention is The Twilight Zone. The original TV series, The Twilight Zone, I think it's been remade a couple times. I haven't really seen much of the more recent stuff from that, but I love the original show with Rod Serling. And yeah, I love The Twilight Zone. It's such a fantastic show. One of my all-time favorites. So yeah, those are my favorite TV shows. Again, I don't really watch much TV nowadays. Occasionally I'll go back and revisit like some of my favorite stuff. You know, watch some older Scooby-Doo episodes when I'm in the mood for them. But yeah, those are my favorite TV shows. So thank you for the questions, Pulp Fiction Books. Okay, question number 8 is from a good friend of mine, BD Horror. And he is one that I want to mention and give a shout out to. So BD Horror, he deserves way more subscribers than he has right now. His channel is still kind of small yet, but it's about to blow up. BD Horror is about to become rich and famous on YouTube. He has great high quality content. And when he becomes rich and famous and has millions of subscribers, his ex-girlfriend Felicia is going to wish that she never left him, all right? BD Horror is a really funny guy. He always is coming in with the jokes. His videos always get me to laugh. And he's also got some really creative and funny thumbnails. He always comes up with the coolest thumbnails on YouTube. And I really think you guys should go check out his channel. Go subscribe to his videos. He puts out some great content. He does a lot of, like what I talk about in Goosebumps Completionist, Goosebumps books, Fear Street. Focus mainly on like kids horror, but he reads and reviews a lot of other stuff as well, including some adult horror books. And yeah, go subscribe to BD Horror, good friend of mine. BD Horror's question for me is, what adult horror book do you think needs more recognition? Let me see if I can find that real quick, because I have the perfect answer for that one. I'm not sure where my copy of it is. I know I have to have it in a stack somewhere here on the floor. I have my books just in stacks on the floor here because I don't have enough bookshelf space for all of them. I don't know where it's at. But an adult horror book that I think needs more recognition is Code Red by Regina St. Clair. And this is a book that I have talked about before on my channel. And I absolutely love this book. It is so good, especially for being an indie book, independently published author. This book is like a throwback to like the classic horror era, like the vintage paperback from hell era of books. And this book is just so much fun. It's cheesy, it's funny, super violent and gory. And I absolutely love this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And I think it needs more recognition. Code Red by Regina St. Clair is a fantastic book. And one that I can see myself possibly rereading again in the future. So yeah, go check out Code Red. And then BD Horror also wants to know, what are some of your interests or fun trivia about yourself that we don't know about? Let's see. What are some of my interests outside of reading and writing and books, obviously? I actually have a lot. I have a lot of hobbies outside doing book 2 and reading and collecting books. Unfortunately, I don't have time to spend doing all of the hobbies that I have. But some of the things that I'm really into outside of books are skateboarding is one. I'm a huge skater. I used to skate a lot in my teen years and early 20s. I always watch skate videos still to this day. I like watching professional skateboarders. Fortunately, I injured myself when I was 21. I had a pretty bad injury. Nothing super serious. I didn't like break any bones. But I had a pretty rough injury that kept me from skating for a long time. And unfortunately, that kind of ended my skating career, I guess you could say. I still would like to get back into skating a little bit. I can't skate like I used to. Yeah, I'm really into skateboarding. Another thing that I really enjoy is tabletop games, playing board games with friends and family, and then also trading card games, especially Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, I really enjoy the experience tabletop games has to offer, sort of that friendly competition and interaction with other people. I've always really liked that. I enjoy like strategy games that involve some thinking, and yeah, I really enjoy tabletop games. I'm also kind of an outdoorsy person. I like going outside, going for a hike in the woods, going fishing. I like to run a lot in the summertime. I'm into fitness a little bit. I do 5K races sometimes. So yeah, I have a lot of hobbies outside of just reading and writing, but unfortunately, I just don't have time for all of them. reading is the most convenient and like easily accessible out of all of my hobbies. So I spend the most time doing that. But during the summertime, when it's nice outside, I try to get out, be more active, go fishing, go for a run, something of that nature. So yeah, those are some of my interests, I guess, outside of reading. And I think that is all. Yep, those are the 2 questions by BD Horror. Thank you so much for your questions, BD Horror. Go subscribe to his channel. I'm putting a link to his channel down below in the description, along with everyone else I've mentioned so far. Let's see here. Okay, next question is by Zoe D. Leon, another very good friend of mine. I talk to him all the time about books. He has a YouTube channel down below as well that I'll be linking to. And he asked me what got me into reading and horror in general. So I think part of what got me into reading as a kid is my mom. She used to read to me a lot when I was a kid and really encouraged me to read more. I think she saw that I was very just drawn to it, and I caught on very quickly. I don't really remember reading this early. Obviously, I was very young at the time, but according to her, I learned to read by myself when I was like 4 years old. I don't know if that's true or not, or if that's just her saying that to like prop me up a lot more or something. You know how moms are. But according to her, I started reading by myself when I was like 4 years old. And yeah, she used to read to me a lot. She took me and my brothers to the library all the time when we were kids. And I could have just spent hours in the library and I would be happy when I was a kid. And I remember I would always be drawn. There was like a kids section in our library, and I'd always be drawn to the like Halloween section. They would have the kids' books organized by holiday, and there were little like pumpkin or like jack-o'-lantern stickers around the binding, and I would always be drawn to those. I was always reading the kids' Halloween books, and my mom didn't like that. My mom did not like horror at all, so it's kind of funny. She really helped get me into reading, I think, as a child. But she hated horror. She hated Halloween. I don't know why. She didn't like anything that was scary or spooky or anything of that nature. And for whatever reason, I've just always been drawn to that. That's just the way God made me, I guess. I don't really know. I don't have a good reason for you, I guess, what got me into horror exactly. But I do know I've always been just drawn to that kind of thing. I think Scooby-Doo is one of the things that helped get me into horror a little bit and mystery. You know, some of those Scooby-Doo episodes, I watched that growing up, and some of those kind of creeped me out as a kid. That was like one of my first, I guess, introductions into the genre, you could say. And yeah, so Scooby-Doo, reading Halloween books at the library when I was a kid. And then naturally, as I got older, I started getting into horror movies, reading more adult horror books. Of course, Goosebumps played a large part in that as well. So yeah. I guess those are my answers for that one. So thank you for your question, Zoe De Leon. And then, he has another question for me as well. Any favorite movies from the past 4 years? And let me think about that one for a minute. I don't really go to the movies a lot. I go to the theaters on average maybe like once a year. I do like watching movies, of course, but I'm not a huge film buff. I don't watch a ton of movies. I'd say out of the last 4 years, my favorite movie, at least off the top of my head, is probably Barbarian. I actually went to the theaters when that came out in 2022. I went to the theaters by myself for that because no one wanted to go with me because everyone's lame. I'm the only one I know that likes horror movies. None of my family they're my brothers, I guess. They like some horror movies, but they're not into it as much as I am. And I went to see that by myself, not really knowing a whole lot about the movie. And it ended up surprising the hell out of me. I thought it was great. It was hilarious. It was very creepy and dark. It had a lot of surprising twists and turns that I did not see coming at all, even as a seasoned horror film fanatic, having watched hundreds of horror movies. And yeah, Barbarian was a great movie. That's probably my favorite movie in recent times, at least the one that I can think of off the top of my head. So yeah. And then Zoe De Leon also wants to know, what is your favorite books of all time, excluding classic horror books like Frankenstein, Dracula, and R.L. Stine? And the reason he says that is because, again, we talk about books a lot, and he already knows that those are some of my favorites. So he wants to know what are some of my favorite books outside of those. And I do have a good answer for you. A couple good ones, actually. One of my all-time favorite books is The Jungle Books by Rudyard Kipling, which is a classic, but it's not horror, so I feel like that counts. And I've read it a couple of times, and I actually want to reread it very soon because it's been a little bit since I've read it. I think the last time I reread it was 3-4 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer than that. Maybe it's been like 5 years now. I don't know. I absolutely love the Jungle Books. One of my all-time favorite books. And yeah, another one that I really, really like is The Witch of Blackbird Pond by Elizabeth George Spear. It's a historical fiction book, so it's not really horror or anything like that or mystery, but it's just a book that is super well written. I love Elizabeth George Spear's writing. It's one of those books that you just get lost into, or at least I did. I just fell in love with the characters. It made me feel, it's one of those books that just kind of pulled me into the story, made me feel like I was right there. And yeah, this is easily one of my all-time favorite books as well. So yeah, those are my answers for that one. Thank you for your questions, Zoe. And then we have a question by Jeepers101 Creepers. He wants to know, what horror movies would you consider awful or a disgrace to the genre? I could give a lot of answers for that one, but I'll keep it short and sweet. The worst horror movie that I've ever seen in my life, and one that I was forced to watch by my friends, my so-called friends anyway, forced me to watch this movie. Looking at you, Goosebumps completionist. Creepshow 3. Don't ever watch Creepshow 3. That movie is god-awful. It is a disgrace to the genre. That movie is an abomination. It's awful. Don't ever watch Creepshow 3. Or if you do want to watch it to see how bad it is, watch it for free on YouTube. Don't ever pay for it. Don't give them any money. So yeah, that's the worst horror movie I've ever seen in my life. And then he also wants to know, if you could adapt 5 episodes from the Goosebumps, or OG 62 Goosebumps series into an anthological TV show, which ones would they be? So I'm not sure exactly if this question means what books from the original series I would adapt, or like what episodes from the original TV series I would adapt, because and the question is worded that what episodes would I adapt? So that makes me think you mean episodes from the original show, but then he says OG 62. So I'm not really sure, I guess, what you mean exactly, like the books, but I'll try to give an answer for each one. So, episode from the original TV series, if it was like remade into like a new anthology show, I think the trilogy episodes would be pretty cool to see remade into like a more adult horror anthology show like Creepshow or something. I think that would be cool to see, because I really like those episodes. They're kind of unique. They're exclusive to the TV show. They feel very creative. They're kind of funny and creepy at the same time. And I think it would be cool to see that idea expanded upon, made a little bit darker, a little bit more adult. I think that would be cool to see. And then, as for books from the original Goosebumps series, I think it would be cool to see in a more darker, maybe not adult, but like maybe a more YA version of The Haunted School. I think it would be cool to see that adapted into an episode, because I've always kind of liked The Haunted School. I like the idea behind it, but it's a book that I've never been in love with. There's something about that book, I'm not sure what it is, but there's something about The Haunted School that just always felt a little bit dry to me. It's just a Goosebumps book that I've never quite loved. It's like a 3-star book, but I really do like the idea behind it, so I think it could be improved upon and made into a really cool episode that's a little bit darker, a little bit more adult. And yeah, there's my answer for that one. And I guess he did ask to come up with 5 titles. I'm not really sure I can come up with that many off the top of my head. This is a question I was not prepared for. So yeah, I don't know. I hope you're content with me giving you those 2 answers, because I can't really think of any others at the moment. And then he also wants to know, what is your favorite and least favorite horror antagonist and villain? My favorite horror villain of all time is probably Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is my all-time favorite horror movie, the original. Leatherface is super creepy. Yeah, he's my favorite horror villain. My least favorite horror villain, I'm actually not sure on this one. This is another question that's kind of catching me off guard here. I should have looked through these and had more time to think about them before I started recording. My least favorite horror villain. Doesn't say if it has to be from a horror movie or a horror book. So, I guess I could pick a book. My least favorite horror villain would probably be Dr. Maniac, from the 2 Dr. Maniac books that R.L. Stine so graciously gave us. Thank you, R.L. Stein, for giving us those books. I've always wanted Dr. Maniac in my life. Yeah, that's probably my least favorite horror villain. Those books are awful. I think Dr. Maniac is just a terrible villain. I don't care for him or those books whatsoever. Yeah, that's my answer for that one. Sorry I couldn't come up with something a little bit more creative. I'm sure I could come up with some more answers if I thought about it more, but yeah, those are my answers for that one. Thank you for your questions, Jeepers Creepers. Number 11, Sean Stevenson Books. Another booktube channel. I think he's a newer booktuber. Go subscribe to him as well. He also talks a lot about kids' horror, Goosebumps, knockoff series on his channel. Go check it out. I'll link it to it down below in the description. Sean Stevenson wants to know, what book would you say people might be surprised that you liked so much? Thank you for your question, Sean Stevenson. One book is one that I already talked about, but I think it's also a fitting answer for this question, and that is The Witch of Blackbird Pond by Elizabeth George Fier. And this is a book that I think some people might be surprised by because it's very outside of what I normally read. I don't really read a lot of like more literary historical fiction that is, kind of based on true events, sort of, that has like an accurate setting in real life, but with fictional characters. And this book is also very romance heavy. If you guys know me, I don't like romance at all. I don't read romance, period. I don't mind a little bit of romance in some books if it's done well or if it makes sense to the story. And there's a lot of romance in this book, I'm not going to lie. But I absolutely love it. I think it's written very well written. It's very convincing. I love all of the characters in this book. And yeah, I think some people might be surprised that I like this one because it's not the kind of thing I typically read. But it's an amazing book. 5 out of 5 stars for it, which I don't give 5-star ratings very often. One of my all-time favorites. Some people might be surprised I like this book. Let me see. Let me kind of gaze around my books here and see if I can come up with another one. I'm not really sure. I'm sorry, guys. I should have looked at these questions ahead of time and tried to come up with some better answers for them. What are some other books that people might be surprised that I like? I don't know. I'm going to have to stick with that one. The Witch of Blackbird Pond. That's my answer for that question. Thank you for your answer, or your question, Sean Stevenson. Okay, the next question is by MJ. Another booktuber. Go subscribe to MJ as well. I'll link to her channel down in the description below. Another fantastic booktuber. Go check her channel out. She wants to know, what is the one book you recommend to people over and over and over again? And the one book that I will always be recommending to people is Intensity by Dean Koontz. This is my all-time favorite Dean Koontz book. One of my all-time favorite books, period. Perfect 5 out of 5 stars. If you're a fan of suspense, thrillers, horrors, this one, I guess, isn't too much of a horror novel. It's pretty much just suspense thriller. It's all realistic, real-life horror. There's really no supernatural stuff in here. Excuse me. But it's an absolutely fantastic book. One of my favorite books I've ever read. This book I can pretty much sum up by the title. It's very, very intense. So yeah, this is a book that I think, fans of this genre should try reading. It's an amazing book. I don't know what else to say about it. Intensity by Dean Koontz. So yeah, that's my answer for that one. Thank you for your question, MJ. Let's see here. Paradigm Shift 7907 wants to know, what are your favorite episodes of the original Goosebumps TV show, and which was the worst? So I already mentioned that An Old Story is my favorite episode, but some of my other favorites are the trilogy episodes, like I mentioned, and then I also really like the Haunted Mask episodes, which might seem like kind of an obvious sort of cliche answer, but they're good. I mean, they're some of the best. I don't know what to say. I think I actually prefer the Haunted Mask 2 episode over the first one, but they're both really, really well done. I think the Haunted Mask 2 episode is actually slightly better than the book. I'm not a huge fan of the book. The Haunted Mask 2 book for me is like a 3-star book. And the episode, I think, is like a 3.5, 4 stars. I think the episode is actually really good for the Haunted Mask 2. So yeah, those are some of my other favorite episodes from the original Goosebumps TV show. And then he also wants to know, which is the worst one? Now, I haven't revisited the entire series as an adult. So I'm sure there might be some episodes worse than this one. But out of the ones that I've seen in somewhat recent times, the worst episode for me is Teacher's Pet. This episode was awful. It was pretty bad, yeah. Teacher's Pet sucked. And then Paradigm Shift also wants to know, what is your favorite episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? I'm not sure exactly what my top favorite is, but a few of my favorite episodes for that show are The Tale of the Phantom Cab, The Tale of Lapping in the Dark, I believe it's called, with the clown. Um, the Tale of the Dead Man's Float, I think it's called, with the swimming pool, the creature in it at the end. That was a very creepy episode. Very awesome monster design there. I know there's some others that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. The Tale of the Vampire Town is a good one. Yeah, I'm not sure I have like a single top favorite that I can give you. The Tale of the Midnight Man that's also a good one. So there, I just gave you, I think, like 5, probably my top 5 favorite episodes. So yeah. What is your favorite Goosebumps cover art? The Werewolf in the Living Room from Series 2000. That is absolutely my favorite. Let me see. They're buried somewhere. I was going to pull it down real quick, but I think they're like in the back row. I don't feel like pulling it out, but yeah. The Werewolf in the Living Room from Series 2000 is my all-time favorite Goosebumps cover art. And then he also wants to know, when collecting books, do you always try to get a first print or just a book in good condition? For the most part, I'm just trying to find books that are in decent shape. If they are a first edition, that's an added bonus. I do want first prints. I think that's really cool to have that. But I'm more concerned about just finding books that are in good shape. So yeah, that is all from Paradigm Shift. Thank you for your questions, man. I really appreciate it. Okay, next up we have a question from Grayson the Goosebumps Kid. Again, another booktuber, fellow Goosebumps fan. I have to give a big shout out to Grayson the Goosebumps Kid. Again, I will be linking his channel down below. Please go subscribe to him. And even though he talks mostly about Goosebumps, he has other content on his channel. I think he talks about horror movies and stuff sometimes as well. So yeah, go check out Grayson. He's got a great channel. He wants to know, are you wanting to make any other kind of content on your YouTube besides book reviews? That's a good question, and I'm not really sure, to be honest. I definitely want to keep this channel mainly just focused talking about books and doing book reviews, rankings, that sort of thing. And horror movies too. Originally, when I started this channel, I wanted to also talk more about horror movies, which has kind of fallen by the wayside. I don't really do that much. Eventually, I might do some more horror movie reviews, so there's that. Other than that, I'm not really sure. If you have any suggestions for me, or if anyone has any suggestions for any other content that they would like to see besides just doing basic book reviews, let me know down in the comments below. I might consider it. So yeah. And then Grayson also wants to know, if you could bring back one canceled Goosebumps book, what would it be? So, out of all the canceled Goosebumps books, you have, what was it, The Haunted Mask Lives from Goosebumps Gold, that was canceled. You have the canceled Give Yourself Goosebumps book number 43 with the cover with the penguins on it. I don't think that one had a confirmed title. You have Happy Holidays from Dead House, another Goosebumps Gold book that was canceled. You have, I'm trying to think, I know there's some others that I'm not thinking of. You have The Incredible Shrinking Fifth Grader, which eventually became The Adventures of Shrinkman, a standalone title, part of the 6 novella series that R.L. Stine wrote, so that one did kind of get published. Out of all of them, I think the one I might pick would actually be a Series 2000 book that was canceled. I believe it was called When the Snake Bites. I believe it was going to be Series 2000 book number 27, right after The Incredible Shrinking Fifth Grader. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I could be mistaken on that one. But I think that's a cool book. Might have been a cool book. I would have liked to see that. So yeah, I would bring back that one. And I think that's all from Grayson the Goosebumps Kid. So thank you so much for your questions, man. Next up, we have a question by Falcon Video 0196, and he wants to know, do you have a favorite genre of music, artists, or songs, etc.? So, I don't really listen to music as religiously as I used to. During my teen years, I listened to music all the time. I was very passionate about it. I was constantly looking up new bands to discover and just listening to music all the time. I don't really listen to music as much anymore, but I would say my preferred genre of music is like rock and metal. I grew up listening to like classic metal bands like Metallica, Iron Maiden, because that's what my dad was into. So he kind of got me into that a little bit. I still listen to some metal nowadays and rock music. I also grew up with like the 90s era grunge rock music, bands like Nirvana, Bush, Sonic Youth, Matchbox 20. Matchbox 20 isn't really grunge, they're more like pop rock kind of, but yeah, those are some bands that I really like listening to. Occasionally I'll go back and listen to them. I still enjoy them. But I have listened to all that music so much throughout the years that I've become a little bit burned out on it. You can only listen to the same song so many times before it gets old. Occasionally, I'll go back and revisit some of that older music for nostalgia, and I still think it's good. And I do listen to some metal as well. I'm into some pretty heavy stuff, but I'm not always in the mood for it. Sometimes I do listen to like some death metal and stuff. But again, it's something I have to be in the mood for. As for some heavy metal bands that I like, August Burns Red. Let me see. Fit for an Autopsy is a band I used to listen to a lot. I don't really listen to them as much anymore. Elevati is a band that's really cool. They're a folk metal band from like Switzerland, I think, or Sweden. And folk metal is a genre of metal that incorporates like harps, the hurdy-gurdy, all these different like instruments, and it's still like really heavy metal as well. And yeah, it's a cool, super cool genre of music. So I listen to like a wide variety of like genres and bands within like rock and metal kind of. So yeah, those are some of the bands that I listen to. Let's see. Where was I? And then, okay, I guess that was the only question by Falcon Video. And then the last question by Mick Carone. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. He wants to know, it's basically the same question. What is your favorite music artists? And, well, I basically already talked about that, so there's your answer, Mick Carone. And then he has one more question for me. He wants to know, what do you do for fun besides reading, or besides books? And I already talked a little bit about some of my hobbies outside of reading. I like tabletop games. I like fishing. I like spending time outdoors, just going for a hike in the woods, trying to find some wild animals, seeing if I can find any snakes. That's another thing I guess I didn't really mention, is I'm a huge fan of wildlife and nature. I like learning about animals. I'm a huge fan of Steve Irwin. Don't tell Arlstein, but Steve Irwin is my true idol. Don't tell Arlstein that one. He might not be happy with me, but yeah. I've always loved watching The Crocodile Hunter growing up. He really made me passionate about wildlife. For those of you who don't know, I actually have 4 pet snakes and a gecko. I have a gargoyle gecko for a pet as well. So yeah, I love animals. I like going outside, spending time outdoors in the woods, trying to just find cool wildlife, snakes, reptiles, whatever. And yeah, I have a lot of other hobbies. Unfortunately, I just don't have time for all of them. Oh, another hobby too that I do have that I didn't really mention is rock climbing. I just got into that recently, last year, I think. My brother got me into it, and I just kind of do it casually, like at an indoor rock climbing gym. I'm not doing no serious professional rock climbing outside, like climbing mountains and cliffs. All right, I'm not that good at it. I'm not risking my life doing that. But I do enjoy rock climbing at like indoor gyms. It's a lot of fun. And that's something that I do casually, once in a while. So yeah, I have a lot of other hobbies outside of reading and writing, but yeah. I'll try not to take up too much of your time talking about all of those, and I've already mentioned a lot of them, so yeah. And I think that might be it. Let me look through these again real quick to make sure I didn't miss anything. I think that is all of the questions. So, yeah. Okay. That is all of the questions. Thank you guys so much for everything. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all my friends and fellow booktubers on here. And I hope I didn't forget to mention anyone. I know I'm going to. As soon as I stop recording, I'm going to think of someone that I forgot to mention, and I'm going to feel guilty about it. But to all of my friends that I didn't give shout-outs to, you know who you are. Thank you guys so much for talking books with me here on YouTube. And that's all I have for today, guys. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.